Tonight's Simply Splendid Stories. Big Dick Born to be Wild. Dragons in Texas. They came, they saw, they were shot. And Nottingham citizens steal cheese. Plus, coming up, a weather forecast with difference. Our team of ninja forecasters will predict the weather while walking on hot coals. Those are the headlines. We're not sorry.
And News Bang, the satirical news show that is not like the others. MT's 1452.
Shocking news from the year 1452, as Richard III, last of the Plantagenets, made his untimely entrance into the world. Witnesses report the infant emerged from the womb fully formed, sporting a rather pronounced hunchback and a look of unbridled ambition in his tiny eyes.
One traumatized midwife, Agnes Pigswill, claims the newborn immediately declared, "Now is the winter of our discontent," before demanding a pony and attempting to usurp his mother's, shall we say, nourishment.
In a twist that surprised absolutely no one, young Richard ascended to the throne by declaring his nephews a pair of illegitimate wretches and depositing them in the Tower of London. Historians remain divided on whether Richard was a misunderstood monarch or just a right royal rotter. Meanwhile, archaeologists across Leicester are on high alert for any suspiciously shaped earthworks beneath local car parks.
1835.
The Battle of Gonzales has erupted into a full-blown food fight between Mexican soldiers and Texian settlers. What began as a polite request for the return of a borrowed cannon quickly escalated, when militiaman Jebediah Spud Johnson launched a projectile of a different sort, a baked potato, fully loaded.
Eyewitnesses report that the air was thick with flying tortillas and chunks of barbecued varmint as both sides engaged in culinary combat. "It were like a hoedown gone wrong," exclaimed Mary Beth Butterworth, local pie-making champion. "Those Mexicans were no match for our secret weapon, Grandmother Butterworth's patented iron skillet cornbread."
This gastronomic clash marked a turning point in the Texas Revolution, proving once and for all that the pen may be mightier than the sword, but a well-aimed enchilada trumps them both.
1766.
Hey Niti! Pandemonium engulfed the coastal hamlet of Bognor Regis today, as residents awoke to discover their beloved pier had vanished overnight. Eyewitnesses report seeing a flock of suspiciously strong seagulls working in cahoots, airlifting the entire structure out to sea.
Local fisherman Bert Codswallop described the surreal scene. "I was minding me own business like when I sees it. Hundreds of gulls, all flapping and a-carrying that there pier like it was a feather."
The constabulary has issued a statement imploring calm and requesting that any witnesses with information about the whereabouts of the purloined pier come forward. Meanwhile, the town council has proposed a radical solution to the crisis, training a squadron of carrier pigeons to airlift a replacement pier from nearby Worthing.
As tensions mount, residents have taken to patrolling the coastline, armed with loaves of stale bread and vows of vengeance. The mayor of Bognor Regis, visibly shaken, told reporters, "We shall rebuild, and this time we'll secure the new pier with something a bit stronger than seaside rock and the faint hope of a prosperous tourist season."
In a news bang, as obvious as a lie, as unequivocal as truth.
And now, for a weather report that's more blustery than a bagpipe convention in a wind tunnel, it's Shakanaka Giles. Shakanaka, what meteorological madness is headed our way?
Hold on to your hats, folks, because Typhoon Longwang is back. That's right, the tempestuous troublemaker of 2005 is returning for a second spin around the dance floor. He's got his sights set on Taiwan and Fujian, and he's packing winds so strong they could blow a pagoda inside out. In Fujian, they'll be measuring rainfall in bathtubs. We're talking biblical downpours, folks, the sort that make you want to build an ark out of your old tea chests. If you're heading out, pack a snorkel and a pair of flippers. You might need them. Over in Taiwan, it's a different kind of drama. Those power lines are going to be doing the limbo, and those poor trees will be bent over like contortionists. It'll be a sight to see from a safe distance, of course. And forget about air travel, folks. Those airports will be busier than a beehive in a honey factory. So, batten down the hatches, stock up on ginger biscuits for seasickness, and hope old Long Wang decides to waltz off somewhere else. And that's all the weather.
(1835).
Hold on to your 10-gallon hats, because things are about to get hotter than a chili cook-off in Texas. It's 1835, and those Texian settlers are kicking up a right fuss down in Gonzales. Seems they're not too keen on those Mexican chaps trying to disarm them. They've even got a cannon, the cheeky devils. We go now to our man on the dusty plains, Brian Barstable, who's dodging bullets and bad burritos. Brian, what in Davy Crockett's name is going on?
Martin, Gonzales is a right tinderbox. Imagine a saloon brawl with more gunpowder than tequila. Those Texians are a feisty bunch, Martin, tougher than a 3-day-old steak. They're holed up behind their little cannon, daring those Mexican dragoons to come and have a go if they think they're hard enough. I just saw a bloke take down a Mexican soldier with a well-aimed spittoon. Martin, resourceful, these Texians. They're using everything they can get their hands on. Muskets, rifles, pitchforks, even a couple of angry armadillos. It's a right proper Alamo in the making. Those Mexican dragoons, bless their sombreros, are looking a bit bewildered. They're used to dealing with lazy rancheros, not these rootin'-tootin' Texian mavericks. I reckon they'll be heading back to Mexico City with their tails between their legs, singing a mournful mariachi tune about the day they met their match. This is a turning point, Martin, the spark that will ignite a revolution. The Texians have tasted blood, and they're not going to back down. It's going to be a long, hard fight, but those boys are determined to carve out their own destiny, even if it means using a spittoon as a weapon. This is Brian Bastable, Newsbang, signing off from a battlefield that smells like gunpowder, chili, and freedom.
1766.
And on this day, in 1766, absolutely nothing of note occurred. Not a single event worthy of historical record transpired. It was, by all accounts, the most uneventful day in the annals of human history. One might say it was a day so mundane, it achieved a sort of perverse notability through its sheer lack of incident. For more on this fascinating absence of occurrences, we go now to our correspondent Ken Schitt. Ken, how does one report on nothing?
Good evening, you cheese-stealing bastards. Ken Schitt here, reporting from the mean streets of Nottingham, where the stench of curdled milk and human desperation hangs thick in the air. In 1766, this quaint little shithole erupted into a dairy-fueled frenzy that would make your grandmother's bridge club look like a pack of rabid wolverines. The annual Goose Fair, usually a jolly affair full of feathers and festivity, turned into a goddamn fromage free-for-all. Lincolnshire merchants, those fat-cap bastards with more money than sense, tried to buy up all the cheese wheels in sight, but the good people of Nottingham, starving and pissed off, weren't having any of that bullshit. They surrounded those greedy pricks faster than you can say Stilton. What followed was a lactose-laden shitstorm of epic proportions, cheese wheels flying through the air like edible UFOs, smashing windows and knocking the mayor on his pompous ass. It was beautiful chaos, I tell you. But it wasn't all fun and games, you heartless mongrels. The military, those trigger-happy bastards, opened fire on the crowd. Poor William Eggleston, a local farmer, caught a bullet meant for the cheese thieves. A damn tragedy. But that's what happens when you bring guns to a cheese fight. So remember, you ungrateful swine, next time you're nibbling on your fancy brie, spare a thought for the brave souls of Nottingham who fought and died for their right to affordable dairy. This is Ken Shit, signing off before I get pelted with gorgonzola.
1967.
And on this day in 1967, the United States Supreme Court witnessed a seismic shift as Thurgood Marshall donned the robes of justice, becoming the first African American to ascend to this lofty perch. In a move that sent shockwaves through the corridors of power, Marshall, a man who had argued 32 civil rights cases before the very court he now joined, took his seat amidst a flurry of Southern senators' eyebrow-raising and tie-adjusting. One can only imagine the collective gasp as Marshall's gavel first struck, heralding a new era of judicial deliberation and sartorial excellence. For more on this groundbreaking appointment, we go now to our American correspondent, Melody Wintergreen.
Washington, D.C., 1967. The Supreme Court, where the air is thick with anticipation and the ghosts of Dred Scott are about to meet their match. Melody Wintergreen here, where history is being made and the scales of justice are about to be rebalanced. Outside, a crowd has gathered, a tapestry of hope and anticipation. They're chanting for equality, for justice, for a future where the color of your skin doesn't determine the content of your character. Inside, the justices take their seats, their robes whispering tales of past judgments and future precedents. And then, the moment arrives. Thurgood Marshall, the legal lion who fought Jim Crow in courtrooms across the land, steps forward. Every stride is a victory march, every glance a challenge to the status quo. As the oath is administered, you can practically hear the ghosts of segregationists spinning in their graves. But Marshall stands tall, his gaze unwavering. He's not just taking a seat, he's claiming a legacy. He's a beacon of hope, a living testament to the long arc of the moral universe bending towards justice. Let the bells of freedom ring. Thurgood Marshall has arrived. The Supreme Court will never be the same, and America, it's one step closer to fulfilling its promise of liberty and justice for all. Melody Wintergreen, Newsbang, at the Supreme Court, where the gavel of change has just struck a resounding blow for equality.
News bang. Trampling over the lawns of latitude and logical loopholes.
And now, for a traffic report more chaotic than a pigeon in a pinball machine, it's Polly Beep. Polly, what's driving commuters bonkers today?
Hiya, my little traffic turtles. Polly Beep here, your gal on the go, with a traffic update that's more twisted than a double helix in a hurricane. Hold on to your boarding passes, folks, because things are getting a bit crashy-bangy over at Guangzhou Baiyun International Airport in China. A hijacked plane has decided to play a game of bumper cars with two other jets. It's carnage on the tarmac, with luggage flying, passengers screaming, and those little airport buggies doing donuts. Avoid it like the plague unless you fancy a front row seat to the world's most expensive demolition derby. High in the sky above the Pacific Ocean, Aero Peru Flight 603 is having a bit of a sticky situation. It seems some bright spark forgot to remove the masking tape from the plane's sensors, and now the pilots think they're soaring high above the clouds, when in reality, they're practically doing a flyby of a whale's blowhole. Not ideal for nervous flyers. Remember, folks, always double-check your pre-flight checks. And back home in Blighty, we've got a llama drama unfolding on the M25. A herd of escaped llamas, all decked out in sunglasses like they're on holiday in Ibiza, has brought traffic to a standstill. They're demanding first-class tickets to Machu Picchu and a lifetime supply of alfalfa pellets. Stay clear unless you fancy a staring contest with a very grumpy llama. That's all for now, folks. Drive safe and remember, keep your eyes on the road, your hands upon the wheel, and your llamas securely locked away in their pens.
News Bang, debunking fables with a gavel of truth.
Sandy O'Shaughnessy's here with a tale of crowns, car parks and calamitous kings that's sure to tickle your historical fancy.
Nice and easy.
Well, top of the morning to you, and a very good evening to you all. It's Sandy O'Shaughnessy here, your man for all things regal, back with another tale from the Royal Vault. So, pull up a chair, pour yourself a cuppa, or a Guinness if you're feeling bold, and let's have a right royal chinwag about a right royal rogue, Richard III. Now, young Richard, born in 1452, wasn't exactly handed the crown on a silver platter. He had to wait his turn, plotting and scheming like a magpie in a jewellery shop. But in 1485, he finally got his mitts on the throne, kicking his own brother to the curb. Talk about sibling rivalry. Makes you wonder what their Christmas dinners were like, eh? Pass the sprouts, Richard, and while you're at it, how about passing back that kingdom you nicked? But Richard, bless his scheming heart, wasn't satisfied with just the crown. Oh no, he went and declared his own nephews illegitimate. Talk about adding insult to injury. I imagine those family gatherings got a bit frosty. After that... Now, Richard's reign, sadly, was shorter than a leprechaun's attention span. Just 2 years after snatching the crown, he found himself at the Battle of Bosworth Field, face to face with a chap called Henry Tudor, who fancied the throne for himself. I received a lovely letter from young Patrick in Galway asking, "Sandy, is it true Richard died shouting, 'A horse, a horse, my kingdom for a horse'?" Sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? Well, Patrick, you're right, it does. And it's probably just a bit of poetic license, though I wouldn't be surprised if Richard did let out a few choice words when he realised he was having a rather bad day at the office. Anyway, as we all know, Richard ended up on the losing side at Bosworth Field. He was last seen charging into battle, swinging his sword like a madman, shouting something about a horse. And let's be honest, when you're facing an army of angry blokes with pointy weapons, a reliable mode of transport is probably more important than a kingdom, isn't it? And on that note, I'll bid you all a fond good night. Keep those letters coming, and remember, whether you're a king or a commoner, it's always better to be alive than a car park curiosity. This is Sandy O'Shaughnessy saying good night, and as always, see you later, alligator, in a wild crocodile.
All over the country for everyone.
New 1913.
In a dramatic turn of events that has shaken the very foundations of theatrical history, we can now confirm that on this day in 1913, the Schubert Theatre burst onto the Broadway scene with all the subtlety of a rhinoceros in a tutu. The inaugural production? None other than Shakespeare's Hamlet, because apparently nothing says grand opening quite like Danish royal dysfunction and existential angst. For more on this earth-shattering revelation, we turn to our culture correspondent, Smithsonia Moss. Smithsonia, I understand you've been investigating the shocking proliferation of men in tights on Broadway. What can you tell us?
Now, at this point of the evening, we welcome listeners on FM who've just joined us.
Whoa, Newsbang Nation. Smithsonia Moss here, your Broadway babe, and let me tell you, the Schubert Theater opening in 1913 was a bigger deal than a chorus line of Rockettes high-kicking their way through Times Square? Picture it. October 2nd, 1913. New York City is buzzing like a beehive full of caffeine-fueled flappers, and the Schubert brothers, Lee, Sam, and Jacob, those dapper dons of the theater world, are throwing a party that would make Gatsby blush. They've just built the most opulent, gorgeous theater this side of the Atlantic, and honey, it's dripping with more velvet and gold leaf than a Liberace costume. Now, these Schubert boys weren't messing around. They wanted to make a statement, a theatrical mic drop heard round the world. So what did they choose for their grand opening? Some fluffy musical comedy with tap-dancing chorus girls? Hell no! They went straight for the jugular with Shakespeare's Hamlet, starring the legendary Sir Johnston Forbes Robertson, a thespian so renowned he could make a phone book sound like Shakespearean poetry. The critics went wild, honey. They were practically throwing their monocles and spats at the stage in a frenzy of adoration. The New York Times called it a triumph of art and intellect, which is basically critic speak for holy shit, this is good. And the audience? They were eating it up like a box of Godiva chocolates. I mean, who doesn't love a good dose of royal intrigue, betrayal, and revenge, all wrapped up in a package of iambic pentameter? But here's the real tea, folks. Forbes Robertson, the star of the show, was a total diva. Rumor has it he demanded a dressing room filled with lilies and insisted on having his tights hand-washed with lavender-scented soap. He was like the Mariah Carey of the theater world, only with less meltdowns and more Shakespearean gravitas. Anyway, the Schubert Theater opening with Hamlet was a landmark event in Broadway history, a glorious collision of high art and showmanship. It cemented the Schubert brothers' status as theatrical titans and set the stage for a century of Broadway brilliance. So next time you're strolling through the theater district, take a moment to appreciate the legacy of the Schubert Theater, a place where dreams are made, stars are born, and men in tights reign supreme. Wah-ho.
The news bang, keeping it real in a world of made-up facts.
And it's time for the final look at tomorrow's headlines. The Times: Giants do it the Thompson way, with a photo of a man with a stick. The Mail lead with mystery man found lying in gutter. American writer in coma. There's a diagram there of a gutter. Today go with Up and Away as spaceman Wally orbits Earth. The Telegraph opt for Q cactus falls over, with a photo of the said cactus. The Express: film star takes off blouse and socks in shop. I notice they've included a small blouse-sized chart. And that's it for tonight. A great week's viewing for you all, with even better coming next week. Perhaps. Don't bet on it. Just time for the holiday photograph competition results, which have been totally fabricated by our station cat, Brenda.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show, written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.